smaller marketplace. The multiple building access is extremely difficult to do in retail applications. A lot of times the automation system can't do lighting and metering all at the same time. And the overall installation process of that is very invasive to retail marketplace. A lot of times those installations that do happen have to be done after hours, and it's an extremely cost-ineffective approach to install an automation system, beyond the fact that the material that you're installing is really designed for larger type facilities, which is extremely costly in the retail market. So what if you were able to reduce energy consumption by 15 to 30+% in all your locations? That's where Schneider Electric has came out with what we call the Smart Structure Light solution. And it's specifically designed for the smaller footprint facilities, those 100,000 square foot or less facilities. And the retail marketplace is a great fit for this particular product. When we look at installing a product within a facility, we're really wanting to have a low installed cost, which clearly gives us a better return on our investment. And this particular product does that. And as I go through this presentation, you're going to get a little bit of a better idea how we do that. But the product itself is really designed to provide comfort and overall savings and an understanding of where you really are spending your money in your facilities. And we do this comfort and savings through control of HVAC, control of lighting, and the monitoring piece of it through metering. That's where we really understand in the metering where we're at today and the things that we want to implement, the control strategies, the cost-saving strategies that you want to implement. Metering that information today gives you a good baseline, and tomorrow, once that's in and you're actually executing some control strategies, you can really see where you're making your savings. And further on the metering side of it, our industry is really going to what's called a demand response, right, or an auto demand response. And those are really control strategies that are implemented within your facilities based off of a command, whether it's from you yourself initiating a command either locally or getting into your facilities and initializing that command, or an auto demand response may be coming from your utility company that says, you know, if you can shed a few degrees or maybe dim some lights or turn some lights off, we will give you an incentive for your utilities within their facilities. And that's, again, where the metering really comes in as well. The other thing within the systems is open and scalability. The important thing to understand about systems today, but particularly the larger type systems, they're all open and they're very scalable within a facility. Whereas some of the systems that are in the marketplace today for the small retailers, as far as footprint goes, they're not very open, they're not scalable, meaning that when you design and implement a control strategy or you've made a commitment to a particular product or a vendor, you're what I like to call a monkey's paw. You've stuck your hand in there, you've grabbed that banana, and you can't let go of it, and you're stuck, right? This particular product avoids that. We're open and we're scalable. The flexible management piece of it, this particular product's based off of a web browser that's built into the controls, so you're not looking at a cost investment to put computers in or software or point licensing or licensing for software. All of our software is embedded within our controllers, so there's no extra components that's required for you to manage within your IT organization. And we also have the ability to do multi-sites from access remotely or being able to do it at a particular site. And then lastly is the integration to other systems. If you have an existing system there and you want to implement the use of the Smart Structure Light, you can do that as well, because it will integrate to most systems out there. So this next slide here talks real quickly about what Smart Structure Light looks like at a high level. The first highest level of that is what we call the structureware, or the building expert piece of it. This is the software that's embedded in the controllers that you see below. And this gets back to my point earlier in the previous slide that there's no software that's required. Everything that you're seeing here on the screen is embedded within the individual controllers that are installed at the sites. And then the next level, which is what we call the managers or the multi-purpose manager, the MPM. This is the flavor of controllers that we offer to put out in facilities. And to point out here, mostly within the retail marketplace, we typically see one of these controllers being applied because, frankly, the footprint is relatively small, and again, this is designed for a smaller footprint. So you're going to choose the correct controller that applies to your particular facility. And then lastly on this screen, we have what we call smart controllers and sensors. These devices are what we would call the field devices that are actually connected to a piece of equipment that may be turning something on or turning something off. And these devices talk directly back to the MPMs or those multi-purpose managers above that. So if you look at this slide and you look at it from the bottom up, you have your smart controllers, which are controlling the exact pieces of equipment. Maybe it's your rooftop package, air conditioning and heating, lighting, whatever that may be, monitoring power meters. That happens at the field level. That goes into the what we call the MPMs, the multi-purpose managers, and from there, at the top level, you have the ability to access the system with the embedded web interface. So I talked a little bit a while ago about the future-proof investment of the product and talking about scalability and its openness. This slide here really talks about how this product, the Smart Structure Light, fits in within the automation industry. In bottom line, we simply talk IP and Ethernet, BACnet, OBIX, Extended Web Service, EWS, FTP, Modbus, CAN bus, ZigBee, and InOcean. A lot of words there, a lot of acronyms, but essentially your BACnet and your OBIX, which is Open Building Information Exchange, and EWS, which is Extended Web Services. Those are your three prevalent protocols, besides the fourth one, which is LAN. Those protocols are basically what ASHRAE has designed and said that these are the standard open protocols that we want all the automation systems in the face of the earth to be able to be interoperability with. So we support those three right there. FTP is simply a file transfer protocol, and that's a ability to transfer files from a controller. Maybe you're looking at your metering for your facility and all of your KW consumption. This control system has the ability to send that data across the internet to your corporate IT organization and put data in as an Excel file via this FTP protocol. So it gives you information on what's going on automatically from the site. And then Modbus and CAN bus, those are hardwired communication protocols that the industry uses to talk from controller to controller. But most importantly here is our ZigBee and InOcean. The ZigBee and InOcean technology is the technology that we use on the wireless side to be able to talk to maybe thermostats or lighting relays or dimmable ballast. We use those protocols and that technology very successfully in the installation of this product to reduce your installation cost. And frankly, utilizing those two protocols is really where the cost savings comes in with this product. Beyond the fact that it's designed to work in a smaller facility and handle that point count within a smaller facility, the actual physical installation requires less wires because we're doing most of this automation wirelessly through these two protocols. The next slide here is just a little bit closer look of what some of these devices look like. The 7000 series controllers here, these are essentially very, very, very smart thermostats. So imagine taking your what we call a dumb thermostat off the wall that just sits there and turns heating and cooling on, and you have no visibility to it and what it's doing, and installing a smart one. You're utilizing the existing wires that are there to talk from the thermostat down in the space up to the rooftop package unit. Those wires still get used. This device actually has a Zigbee radio in it, and it allows us to talk back to the smart structure light system and see what set points are, if the air conditioning is running or the heating's running, what stage it may be, your discharge air temperatures, is your fan running or your filters plugged. All of those things that are important to understand how a piece of equipment is operating, or frankly, limit the operation of a piece of equipment. You have the visibility and the control of that at the stat via a wireless communications via Zigbee. There's 4 models listed here on the screen. Of these 4 models, there's approximately 92 different versions that are out there. We virtually have every application that you could possibly think of within any of your facilities all built into any one of these models. The next slide here is just kind of a peek into the future. In the future, actually, for us, it's very exciting. It started this month in July. We're moving to a new product line. It's the SE8000, and this particular model is essentially the same as a 7000, but it's more of a snazzy 21st century look to it. It's a capacitive touch screen. There's no buttons that exist on this at all. What you're looking at here, where it says 73.5 degrees, that screen can be configured via the smart structure light system to display whatever you want. Whether you want all those little buttons displayed on it, or the temperature values, or maybe simply off to the right, you just want to have your logo displayed on that, or maybe a short little message that customers could see as they walk by the thermostat, directing them to a particular location in your facility. We can put that in there too. And it's not necessarily something that we do. It's just a function within the Smart Structure Light that you can simply program that remotely, and it sends it to the screen, and folks can see that there. So at Schneider, we're very, very happy about this product, that it's came out on the marketplace, and eventually it will phase out our 7000 series, and we will be moving directly to offering this product here. Again, does the same thing, same functionality, except it has more flexibility in how you can display things on the screen. And clearly at the bottom here, you can see a good example of the different architectural styles that we can apply within a facility as well. Our next slide here is talking a little bit more about the multi-purpose managers. This was in 2 or 3 slides prior to this. These are the 3 flavors of controllers that we have. The controller on the far left has multiple inputs and outputs with Modbus, and Modbus is that technology that we use to talk to kW meters, or maybe another piece of equipment that you have in your facility that can talk to this particular MPM. The one in the middle is used for VAV applications. We don't typically see that in the retail marketplace, but typically where that does happen is the mixed use space, where there may be a bank and a retail facility all within one building. Sometimes we see those there, but we have a solution for that as well. And then lastly is the MPM GW, which is a gateway. This device is the same device as the 2 on the left, except it doesn't have any physical inputs or outputs that you can hardwire to. This is strictly a wireless device itself. And if we look at the other 2 devices, you'll see that they have the same types of antennas that are on this gateway module. And though all of those antennas do the same thing, the one on the left talks Zigbee, the one on the right talks in what we call in-ocean. I've talked a little bit about Zigbee, haven't said much about in-ocean, but in-ocean is basically a very simple wireless protocol that really has its strength in temperature monitoring, lighting controls, whether it's lighting switches, dimmable ballast, light harvesting, light relays. All of those things are wireless devices. And most of those devices do not require either power, batteries, or any kind of electric RAN to them whatsoever. Most in-ocean devices generate their electricity to send out wireless signals by a physical action. For example, when you flip a light switch on, in an in-ocean light switch, the physical motion of turning that light switch on generates energy through a piezoelectric device, very much like your gas grills when you push the lighter on that. It creates the energy to send that telegram out. So going back to the cost effectiveness of this product, it becomes very, very cost effective whenever you start looking at lighting in your HVAC, because we're not using any new wiring. We're using your existing wiring that's there, and we can do that with the HVAC side of it, and we can do it with the in-ocean piece of it as well. The next slide here real quick is the StructureWare Building Expert, and that's the web-based interface into this control system. This is just a real quick example of what it would look like to get into it to do some programming and what some of the objects look like within it, and then some quick visualizations of the system. But very flexible product, and again, this is all embedded in those multi-purpose managers. So there's no software that's required. You simply plug into it on an IP network, and you give it a web address, and you go into the controller, and everything's embedded in the controller. So essentially what you're using is your favorite web browser to access that. The next part of this presentation here, I'd like to just briefly talk a little bit about what we call Building Expert. Really, the way I've been looking at this product in my presentation so far is at a standalone type level. What you would be seeing here is accessing everything locally at the store, or maybe getting in remotely through a VPN connection, a virtual private network connection through your corporate network to each one of these sites. But we also offer a product. It's a web-based product. We use Amazon Cloud Services, and essentially, as you install the Smart Structure Lite within your facilities, if you want to move into a cloud-based solution of that, you can, and we do that with this Building Expert here. In this example here, this user's actually logged in. It's got a map of the United States, and you can see the little green dots that indicate where his stores are, and the red triangles are there's alarms in those stores, or the yellow is there was an alarm that has returned to normal. So it's a great visualization into the system, and it's a cloud-based solution that the data comes from the site, goes up to the cloud, and it allows you to access it via an iPad, or as Carson's presentation was earlier about smartphones, you can do that with a smartphone as well. And then also you can use a computer, and it's a free software that gets downloaded from the App Store on your computer or iPad. But the point is that you have the ability to put this up into the cloud and pull it down from the cloud if you like as well. And this last slide here is a quick visual of data on energy consumption within all the stores that this particular customer has here. So, I've talked a little bit about wireless, and a lot of times when folks hear somebody talk about wireless, the first thing they think of is, a cordless hand phone. That's wireless, and I use the word cordless because that's what we used to call them. Now we're calling them wireless, and the word wireless really is not wire-free. So I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that we would put everything in and it doesn't require any wires. That would be considered a wire-free system, and there virtually are absolutely no wire-free systems out there. Everybody's wireless, right? So within wireless installation, as I go back to the beginning of my presentation, I talked about how we don't want to use any new wire. We really want to avoid that. So we want to use existing wire there and enable wireless technology to put a product in that will use existing wires and maybe talk wirelessly from that device to another device. And in doing so, that's where your huge cost savings are in automating your facilities, not having that electrical installation that you typically see. So real quick, what happens when you get a Smart Structure Lite solution put in your facilities? This is a quick example of what retail might look like for you. You have, starting at the top, your Building Expert, which is your access into the system, into the multi-purpose manager. Off to the right, or sorry, to the left, you're hardwired via Modbus into a kW meter. And then below, we're talking wirelessly to in-ocean lighting relays, maybe some in-ocean temperature sensors. And then that multi-purpose manager may be talking to another wireless manager off to the right there that's talking wirelessly to those 7000 series programmable thermostats. Those devices are hardwired to your HVAC equipment. And then off to the far right, you can see where we're doing some hardwired lighting out of the controller to do some outdoor signage and lighting in a facility. So the point of this slide is to give you a quick idea that, you know, wireless, again, is exactly that. It's not wire-free. We're using wires in this example, but some of the heavy, what we call home runs, for communicating from end devices back to controllers are using a wireless technology. And then just a real quick recap on the solution. The needs within retail, remote multi-site management, tens to thousands of units. We do that with StructureWare, the building expert. Cost that scales down the size. Again, traditional HVAC building automation systems are designed for larger applications. It's very tough to squeeze that down into a retail marketplace and make it cost effective, right? Where we can do that with Smart Structure. The next challenge I think that people have in the retail marketplace is you can't close your facilities down, right? So that forces you to do installations at night when you are closed, and maybe you're a facility that's open 24/7. So how do you get in there around your customers? That's where utilizing wireless technology actually helps make that happen for you all. And then the regulation changes from region to region. We can do monitoring, HVAC, and lighting, and basically everything that you'd want to do within your facilities through Smart Structure Lite. So lastly here, you know, we want to make sure that we make the most of your energy. And Schneider Electric's committed to developing new products and new technologies to help that happen for you at a cost-effective solution. And this small building marketplace, a lot of folks are starting to get into it now, but I believe that Schneider Electric's got the upper hand on folks, and hopefully this has been interesting for you, and it's maybe opened up some eyes and see where it's a great fit for you. With that said, I have completed my presentation.
Oh, thanks, Dave. Just as we wrap this up, one question for you. When somebody inputs or implements, installs, whatever, some of your energy management systems, what would be a typical payback period that a retailer would expect?
Well, that's a very good question. And for example, we're seeing folks have payback in a retail marketplace less than a year. And in a lot of instances, we're seeing a payback in less than 6 months. Now, it really depends on what you really do put out in the facility. But if you look at a typical retail, maybe you're doing a few lights, you're doing 3 or 4 rooftop package units, you're looking at a payback somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 months.
Well, thanks, David. This has been really informative for me, learning about some of your systems and how Schneider Electric does more than negotiate utilities. They also have systems that can be installed in stores and help reduce utility expenses by increasing productivity in essence. So I appreciate your time here, Dave, and we'll definitely pass on your contact information to those listeners here at the end of the call as well, but you can see it with listeners on the screen there. So we'll transition now to our last presenter, who is Rudy Moeller of Alliance Cost Containment. And Rudy, I'm going to make you the presenter here. And so, Rudy, can you hear me?
I can, and
all right.
I should be ready here any moment here. Let's see.
That sounds great. So I'm seeing your firm here. So again, Rudy's with Alliance Cost Containment, and they work to negotiate and help firms reduce all operating expenses all across all lines. So it should be an informative presentation. And Rudy, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Jed. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be as fast as I can here because I know we're coming to the end of our hour. I'll begin by saying that one of my colleagues, I think, did the best job of describing what we do by saying it's very hard to find a single way to save $1 million, but there's a million ways that you can save a buck. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. We've got 5 places here where you can save pockets of money that collectively could add up to some fairly serious savings for your business. And we're focusing today on practical ways to go about looking for savings and taking that money back to the bottom line. There are certain cost control facts of life that we run into as we look at people's companies out there. Most companies tend to focus on their raw materials or high dollar expenses when they're watching what the costs are. You guys, for example, probably all spend a fair amount of time and effort and staff resources watching the cost of fuel and watching the cost of some of your key grocery items. But it's, and as a result, you probably don't spend as much time as you could on just the day-to-day operating costs that are required to open the doors every day. Few of the companies out there actually will define their specific expense areas and systematically review them. You know, people do a good job of taking an annual look, for example, at their health insurance costs. But you know, again, back to those day-to-day things, unless there's a big increase in price or a big drop in service, it's very easy to put them aside and focus on the things that are giving you big problems today. There's a lot of opportunity from creating a regular program of reviewing your expenses by category. And by doing that, you can arrive at some pretty quick savings to your bottom line. And I'll simply say that in leaving that there, that we've found that Ben Franklin was actually wrong. A penny saved is actually worth more like 6 to 10 pennies earned. If you think in terms of what your margins are in business, every time you can cut your expenses by $1, it's the equivalent of, in some cases, 6 to 10 or maybe even more dollars in incremental revenue. So there's a lot to be said from trying to run as lean as you can. In any case, let's look at some of the 5 ways that we're talking about looking to save for money quickly. Waste disposal contracts are a great place to look. Merchant service contracts are places that I know are near and dear to your hearts. Utility bills are a very fruitful place to look for savings. Cellular service bills and wireless bills are a great place to look. And then just your regular consumables, your janitorial supplies and paper consumables within your stores are all places where savings can really add up. For example, in waste disposal, you're going to see a theme here as I go through here, and it's all summarized there in that first one. You've got to read your contracts and be familiar with your contracts. In the case of waste disposal, it's not unusual for those contracts to be evergreen. And if you don't give them notice within 90 days of the expiration of the contract, it's going to roll over, and you're going to be on the hook for another 3 to 5 years with that waste hauler. So you really need to keep up on your contracts. So the first thing you do is you pull them out, take a look at them, and see when those termination notices are required. If you're at a good point ahead of that termination notice, you can send a letter to the provider and announce your intentions to rebid your contract. And at that point, you look for opportunities to consolidate your suppliers. If you have multiple locations, you probably have multiple providers. I can think of at least one convenience store chain I've worked with that had over 100 stores, that had over 24 waste disposal companies working for it. We were able to get that down to 1 waste disposal company and 1 bill every month, itemized by location. That made for a tremendous amount of soft cost savings within their accounting department, and it did, in fact, drive a fair amount of savings in hard dollar price reductions as well. And one thing you could also take a look at, if you're not recycling cardboard, maybe you should look at it. Compactors are not that expensive, and they can be a great way to offset the cost of your waste disposal by enhancing your revenue stream. Merchant service contracts. I know everyone in the C-store business looks at this on a regular basis, but if by some chance you haven't done it lately, again, review your contracts for expiration dates and out terms, and then look at multiple bids focused on not just the base rates of the charges, but all the little ancillary charges as well. As you probably know, you can get nickeled and dimed to death within this category. So you need to focus on what the total costs are. And when it comes time to look for new merchant services, try to look for companies that have master agreements with the credit card companies rather than resellers of their services. It's like anything else, the more middlemen you have, the more expenses you get added. So that's a great way to avoid them. Utility bills are a really interesting place to look for expenses and look for savings. Even in regulated states, such as Kentucky, where I'm based, you're reviewing your gas and electric bills for accuracy is very important. And it's not easy to do, so you have to go through it very carefully and spend a little bit of time thinking about it. But by doing that, particularly if you can sit down with someone from the utility companies servicing your various locations, you can look for ways to maybe move some of your stores from just a standard commercial rate to a time of day tariff. For example, if you're open 24/7, chances are very good that more of your energy is used on an off-peak basis rather than an on-peak basis, and you can qualify for different tariffs that are going to be lower than your standard commercial tariffs. That can save you money literally with the stroke of a pen. If you're in a deregulated state, you have many, many options in terms of working with energy brokers to take a look at your expenses and buy the actual cost of energy, perhaps better than your incumbent supplier can provide you. So it's very important that each time you have a contract renewal in that kind of a situation, that you go out for bid and you take a look at what the various providers can do for you, because it is an extremely dynamic market and there's always an opportunity to save some additional money. Cellular phone bills are a great place for savings too. You know, it never ceases to amaze me that when we look at people's cell phone expenses, how many ways there are to trim the costs. And some of the things, for example, are ghost phones, you know, the phones that you own that may be sitting in a drawer somewhere that were somebody, you know, a district manager's phone or a maintenance person's phone that has left the company. It's just sitting there unused, but you're paying that monthly charge month in and month out. A lot of times your service has unused features. For example, you may have a big number of texting minutes attached to a bill, and your people aren't using that to text message one another. You can have unexplained local and national taxes that can go in here that may be eliminated as well. All these things collectively can add up some pretty good sized savings on those cell phone bills. There's also, you need to look at ways to optimize your plans with your current providers, because, you know, by going to group plans and shared minutes and reducing the number of contracts that you have out there, there are ways that you can cut your cell phone bills that way. You know, a more permanent solution may be to just look at reimbursing people on your staff for some flat fee and let them provide their own phones. I know many people do that and find that to be a very good way to control and contain this cost. And finally, look at ways to consolidate your carriers. I'm always a little surprised when I go into a company and find that they're using AT&T and Verizon, and in some cases even a third provider, because somebody, generally speaking, somebody in the senior management ranks decides they're mad at Verizon, so they want to switch to AT&T. Well, that's wasteful, and it takes away the leverage you have with your primary provider, and it takes away the ability to negotiate a better overall package of savings. And finally, things like your janitorial supplies and your paper consumables. I notice that most of the companies that I work with will be buying these products through one of their full-line general wholesalers. And that's not an entirely bad thing to do, but it's one of those many things that you maybe should think twice about and do some comparative shopping. There are a lot of good resources out there that can sell these products on a regional basis, and I'm sure in just about any one of the areas that you live or work in, you can find good alternatives. Several of the big box office supply companies also make a big business in the cleaning supplies and the paper consumables, and they may be a very good resource depending on what you're using and where you're located. And then finally, be sure to take a look at what's being used and try to standardize what's being used in all of your stores. Again, this is one of those areas where in some cases I will see people using several different kinds of floor cleaners and several different kinds of window cleaners and multiple mops and all kinds of different supplies. And to the extent that you can consolidate your purchases around certain select sizes and types and brands of items and focus your budget on those areas, you can drive a better price because you're buying more of a given item. And people like to reduce the price on the high volume, high velocity products that you're buying. So anyway, having said that, if you don't have time to read all those contracts and study all those bills and meet with those various service providers, one option, of course, is to get a group like ours involved to help you. It's a very good way to get this done quickly. Typically speaking, when we come in, we'll take a look at what you're spending and give you a free analysis of what you're spending and where we think we can save you money. We can typically get the savings negotiated and ready to put in place within 8 to 10 weeks. We share all the savings we find with you, so you're guaranteed to get results or you don't owe us anything. And we audit the purchases every 2 months based on the actual sales, based on information we get from your suppliers, so we can show you very specifically where you've saved money. And typically we find that when we do a project for convenience stores, we can save them $1,500 to $4,000 per location per year, which again, in the great scheme of things, is not something anybody's going to retire on, but it's a great way to put some money back on the bottom line. Just as an example, here's a case study of a convenience store in the northern Midwest that we did a couple of years back. And again, none of these areas amounted to a tremendous amount of money saved, but collectively we found about $126,000 a year that they could recoup by just buying from, in many cases, the same suppliers, but buying more effectively, and in a few cases with new suppliers that we were able to show them, offer them a better value. Our group understands your business, and we've worked with quite a few of the members of the study groups. Some of these different chains here I'm sure you recognize. Some of them you may know personally. But in any case, we know that what we do works, and we've done it for a lot of folks just like you. Having said that, if you have questions, obviously I'd be glad to answer them. I'd love to talk with you in person if you have an interest. But believe me, there are dozens of categories out there where you all can make a very quick impact on your business. It's just a matter of picking one out and turning your folks loose on it on a focused, concentrated basis. And you can save money. You will save money. And I encourage you to try that because it's an easy way to make some additional profit. And I'm done.
And I will say that the study group members that have either, one, used your services, or two, done what you've said and tried to study their contracts have invariably found savings out there. So money is to be had by paying more attention to those key operating expense items. And when you start looking at your targeted savings that you put up there, Rudy, I mean, those can add up to reasonable dollars.
Oh, yes, they can.
You made a good point. You're not going to retire on it, but I mean, if you can save $50,000 to $100,000 a year for firm-wide, I think most owners would be quite pleased with that. Well, Rudy, I appreciate you being on the call and taking the time, and David and Carson, all three of you, and all the attendees as well. I'm going to stick up the contact information again real quickly for each of the presenters. So feel free to write that down. The guys would all be happy to hear from you. I hope you found this hour to be useful and would be real interested in receiving any feedback on the call, and feel free to contact me with that. So wish you all well as you go out about this day, and again, thank you for your time. Goodbye.